The rain was falling so heavily that night it felt like the entire city was crying with her.
Then you don't have to.
I was standing outside a small roadside cafe, watching a woman I barely recognized break down in front of me. Her eyes, once full of confidence, were now filled with fear and desperation. She grabbed my hand and whispered the words that changed everything between us. "Just pretend to be my husband for one night," she begged. I looked at her trembling face, at the pain she was trying so hard to hide, and after a long silence, I answered softly, "I don't want to pretend." She froze. For a moment, she thought I was refusing to help her. But then I stepped closer and finished my sentence. "Because if I ever stand beside you, I want it to be real. Before we continue this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of caring for someone when they need it most, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Heart Kindness Tales." My name is Adrian Vale, and I never expected that one rainy evening would completely rewrite the story of my life. I had spent most of my years keeping my heart locked away. After losing my parents at a young age and watching the people I trusted walk away when life became difficult, I learned one lesson: never depend on anyone. I built a quiet life for myself, working as an architect and spending my evenings in a small apartment filled with books and old memories. I wasn't unhappy. I was simply used to being alone. Then I met Clara Whitmore. She was different from anyone I had ever known. Clara wasn't the loudest person in the room, but somehow she was always the one people noticed. She had a way of making strangers feel important, like their stories mattered. She worked at a community center helping families who were struggling, and even though she carried her own burdens, she always found a reason to smile. For months, I saw her from a distance. We would meet during volunteer projects, exchange small conversations, and slowly become friends. But I never asked about the sadness hidden behind her eyes. Everyone has a story they don't tell. Clara's story came crashing into my life one winter evening. She called me after midnight. Her voice was shaking, and I could hear the fear she was trying to control. "Adrian, I need your help." I didn't ask questions. I just grabbed my coat and drove. When I found her, she was standing outside that cafe, holding a small bag in her hands. She looked exhausted, like she had been fighting a battle nobody else could see. That was when she asked me to pretend to be her husband. At first, I didn't understand. She explained that her grandmother, the woman who raised her after she lost her parents, was seriously ill. Her grandmother's biggest wish was to see Clara settled and happy before she left this world. But there was someone else causing trouble. A distant relative named Marcus had been trying to take control of the family home and business. He believed Clara was too young and too emotional to handle everything. He constantly reminded her that she was alone and had no one to stand beside her. That night, Marcus had told her he would arrive the next morning with legal papers, claiming the family property. Clara's grandmother, weak and tired, had one final request. She wanted to meet the husband Clara had supposedly been talking about. The problem was, there was no husband. Clara had mentioned being married because she wanted to comfort her grandmother. She never expected the lie to become real in such a painful moment. "I know it sounds ridiculous," Clara whispered. "I just need someone there for one night. Someone who looks like they believe in me." I looked at her and realized something. She wasn't asking me to protect her from Marcus. She was asking me to help her feel like she wasn't alone. And that was something I understood. Because I knew what loneliness felt like. The next morning, I arrived at her grandmother's old house wearing a simple suit. The house sat on a quiet street filled with trees, and sunlight poured through the windows, making the place feel warm and peaceful. Clara opened the door. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked surprised by how seriously I was taking everything. "You really came," she said quietly. "I told you I would." She looked away. "I thought you would change your mind." "I almost did," I admitted. Her eyes met mine. "Why didn't you?" I answered honestly. "Because everyone deserves someone who shows up when life gets difficult." Those words stayed with her. Inside the house, I met her grandmother, Eleanor, an elderly woman with gentle eyes and a heart full of wisdom. She immediately noticed that something was different between Clara and me. She smiled. Not because she believed our story completely, but because she saw something real. During that day, I watched Clara transform. Around her grandmother, she wasn't the frightened woman from the night before. She became the caring granddaughter who cooked meals, fixed old picture frames, and told stories to make Eleanor laugh. And I realized something. Clara wasn't weak. She had been carrying everything by herself for too long. That evening, Marcus arrived. He walked into the house with confidence, expecting to find Clara alone and defeated. But when he saw me standing beside her, his expression changed. "So this is the husband," he said suspiciously. I nodded. "Yes." He looked at Clara. "You never told anyone." Clara remained silent. For years, Marcus had made her feel powerless. But that day, something changed. She stood straighter. "I don't need to explain my life to you." The surprise on her face afterward told me she hadn't expected herself to say it. Marcus tried to intimidate us, but he couldn't. The papers he brought were incomplete, and after reviewing everything, it became clear that he had no right to take what belonged to Eleanor. He left angry. But the damage he had done over the years remained. That night, Clara and I sat outside on the porch while the rain finally stopped. The air smelled fresh, and the whole world felt quieter. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For bringing you into my mess." I looked at her. "Clara, everyone has a mess. Some people are just better at hiding theirs." She smiled sadly. "I lied to my grandmother. You were trying to protect her. But I lied to you too." I didn't answer immediately. Because she was right. But there was something about her honesty that mattered more than the lie. The next few weeks changed everything. What started as a pretend marriage slowly became something neither of us expected. I started visiting Eleanor regularly. Clara and I spent evenings talking about our dreams, our fears, and the things we had never told anyone else. I learned that she loved old movies, hated thunderstorms, and secretly wrote letters to her parents even though they were gone. She learned that I kept every birthday card my mother had ever given me and that I still missed the family I lost. We weren't two perfect people finding perfection. We were two broken stories finding understanding. But happiness is never a straight road. One day, Marcus returned with new accusations. He discovered that Clara and I were not actually married and tried to use it against her. The truth came out. Clara was devastated. Not because the world knew. Because she thought I would leave. "I'm sorry," she said with tears in her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you." I felt the old fear inside me, the fear of trusting someone and being disappointed. The easy choice would have been to walk away. But then I remembered something Clara had taught me. Love wasn't about never being afraid. It was about choosing someone even when you were. I took her hand. "I told you before, Clara. I don't want to pretend." She looked at me. I meant it. I never wanted this to be a fake story. For the first time, I told her the truth. "I fell in love with you." Her eyes filled with tears. Not sad tears. The kind of tears people cry when they finally feel safe. Months later, Eleanor's health improved, and the old family home became a place of happiness again. Clara continued helping others, and I started designing homes for families who needed a fresh start. Our lives were no longer about pretending. They were about choosing each other every day. A year after that rainy night, I stood in the same place where Clara had asked me to pretend. The same cafe. The same street. But everything was different. She smiled at me. You know, when I asked you to pretend to be my husband, I thought you were going to save me. I smiled. And? She looked at me warmly. You saved me in a way I never expected. I shook my head. No, Clara. We saved each other. Some people enter our lives when everything is falling apart. They don't arrive to fix every problem. They arrive to remind us that we don't have to face everything alone. And sometimes, the biggest miracles begin with a simple act of kindness. Before this story ends, I want to ask you something special. Comment the words, "Kindness creates miracles," if you believe one small act of compassion can change someone's life. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and support the video. Your engagement helps more people discover stories filled with hope, kindness, and second chances. Because sometimes, the person who asks you for help in their darkest moment may become the person who brings the brightest light into your life.